This is the toughest material to forge in Forged in Fire, the Nightmare Steel Billet. Not only is the forging process extremely difficult, even if you manage to forge it by luck, it may still fail miserably in the strength test. As soon as the competition starts, besides the devilish steel billets, the program team also brings out golf clubs. They require the contestants to use these steels, within 3 hours, to forge a distinctive short blade. After the competition begins, Nicholas springs into action first. Although the steel in front of him is tricky to handle, fortunately, he has a unique way to identify steel types. He leans down and licks the steel a few times. In an instant, he confirms that the golf club heads are mild steel. Paired with the high-quality steel billets, they are exactly the ideal materials for 3-in-1 lamination. So Nicholas immediately decides that he will use the 3-in-1 lamination technique to hammer out a Saxon knife. Just like Nicholas, Steve also decides to take on the 3-in-1 lamination technique. He plans to forge a practical camping knife. He processes the golf club heads and steel billets into blocks. Then he stacks them for 3-in-1 lamination. To ensure successful fusion, he even sprinkles flux on the welded steel billet. But somehow something goes wrong. In the next step, the fused 3-in-1 lamination actually cracks. Faced with this problem, Steve feels quite helpless, but the top priority right now is to figure out a way to remedy it as soon as possible. Similar to the first 2 contestants forging ideas, Dustin also intends to show off his 3-in-1 lamination skills. He plans to forge a wide-bellied camping knife. He grabs the steel and bends it repeatedly. Through this rough and straightforward method, he quickly distinguishes between mild steel and high-carbon steel. He grinds the steel billets. After confirming there are no impurities, he then throws the steel billets directly into the furnace. Once the heating is done, Dustin places the steel under the hydraulic press. He starts forging and fusing. The only minor flaw is that during forging, the red-hot steel billet drops onto the ground. But it is not a big problem. It does not affect the next step of forging the blade shape. Unlike the 3 contestants who insist on challenging 3-in-1 lamination, Thor chooses a safer forging method. After all, showing off 3-in-1 lamination is certainly impressive, but failing miserably would be quite embarrassing. First, he uses a cutting machine to cut the golf clubs and steel billets. Then he stacks the cut steel pieces together. He shows off his multi-layer stacking technique for Damascus steel. An hour later, Dustin has successfully forged the blade shape. He is the first to finish the tang. Looking at the completed blade blank, Dustin suddenly realizes that the length of the blade does not meet the competition requirements. But he does not panic at all. He cuts 2 new pieces of mild steel and clads the tang with them, trying to extend the blade length. He welds the blade blank, adds some flux, puts it back into the furnace for secondary heating. Next comes a round of heavy hammering by hand. On the other side, Steve originally wants to sprinkle flux on the flawed steel billet and hammer it again. But no matter how he operates, the cracks on the blade blank still do not improve significantly. In desperation, he has to try grinding off the edge of the blade blank. With only 1 hour left, the other contestants all speed up their progress. Only the confident Nicholas takes it easy. He starts doing some gentle stretching exercises. After releasing his pressure, Nicholas continues to put the final touches on his blade blank. He drills a hole in the tang. After a round of hammering and chiseling, the blade shape is successfully completed. After finishing everything, Nicholas is the first to complete the quenching process. Right after that, after extending the blade length, Dustin also quickly heat treats his blade blank. He follows suit and finishes quenching. With only 15 minutes left on the countdown, Steve finally takes out a blowtorch to heat the blade edge. He plans to use edge quenching. This method can make the blade body more tough. Watching the other 3 finish quenching one after another, Thor, who is clearly falling behind, starts to panic. He picks up his hand hammer. He slams it heavily on the unheated blade blank. In the next moment, an accident happens. The tip of the blade is broken off directly. Can Thor finish in time before the countdown ends? What kind of works will the 4 contestants create? Let's wait and see. He is a legendary bladesmith renowned across the globe, invited to replicate century-old weapon collections. He is also the chief evaluator of Forged in Fire, David Baker. To give contestants a chance to challenge David, the program team invited 4 champion contestants to compete. The winner will earn the opportunity to challenge David. As soon as they stepped onto the stage, the host revealed the steel material directly: Nightmare steel balls. The contestants were required to use these steel balls as raw materials within 3 hours through the forging technique of canister Damascus to forge a distinctive short blade. The Nightmare steel paired with the most error-prone forging method pushed the forging difficulty to the limit. As the host gave the order, the contestants sprang into action one after another. What they didn't expect was that they ran into trouble right at the start. When filling the iron canister, small steel balls clearly couldn't fill it up, but large steel balls simply wouldn't fit. Helplessly, the contestants had to weld the steel balls to steel rods and heat the steel balls separately. After placing the steel balls into the furnace, Alan quickly began preparing the canister Damascus. This time, he decided to pull off a stylish canister removal. First, he coated the inside of the iron canister with isolation fluid. Then, he used a press to fuse the steel balls. Due to poor control of the heating temperature, a small problem occurred with the fusion of the steel billet. To avoid disrupting the subsequent process, he had to put the iron canister back into the furnace to reheat. While Alan was still planning the canister removal, Gideon beside him had already quietly finished processing the steel balls without anyone noticing. After pressing the steel balls into a proper long strip, he placed the steel into the iron canister. The filling was completed right away, and after sealing the canister, he put it into the fire for calcination. As expected of an experienced veteran bladesmith, the whole whole process went smoothly. On the other side, Reiner's progress was a bit slow. After getting the long steel billet fused from the steel balls, he didn't rush to fill the canister. Instead, he turned on the belt sander and carefully polished the impurities on the surface of the steel billet. Then he cut the steel billet into small pieces. After finishing the details, he started filling the canister in an unhurried manner. Compared with the unhurried Reiner, Colin was obviously an enthusiastic doer. Less than an hour into the competition, he was the first to complete the heat treatment of the iron canister. Taking advantage of the proper temperature, he used a vertical press to fuse the steel billet. Looking at the perfectly processed steel billet, Colin couldn't help shouting in excitement. Gideon's progress quickly overtook the other three. After getting the pressed steel billet, he followed up with a flurry of hand hammer forging. After stretching and lengthening the steel billet, he used a cutter to trim off the excess parts directly. Then he put the steel billet back into the furnace for calcination. Once a decent blade blank was ready, he could shape the blade. Such astonishing forging speed made the judges quite excited. In contrast, contestant Reiner was a bit worrying. While the others were preparing to forge the blade shape one after another, he hadn't even finished fusing the steel billet yet. Facing the masters in the arena, Reiner felt great pressure. Fortunately, the fused steel billet turned out perfect. After the heat treatment was done, Reiner immediately started forging the blade shape. At this moment, the previously excited Colin calmed down. He used a press to stretch and lengthen the blade. This time, he was going to make a recurved kukuri knife. To verify the quality of the blade blank, he even demonstrated it to everyone by hammering it repeatedly. While the other three were proceeding in an orderly manner, Alan, who had been leading earlier, started to fall behind, just because he still needed to remove the canister. After a lot of hammering, the outer layer of the canister was finally removed. Just when he thought he would get a piece of fine high-carbon steel, an unexpected situation happened. With one strike of the press, the steel billet deformed and cracked directly. Faced with this mistake, Alan quickly added a large amount of flux to the steel billet and tried to fix it. Half an hour was left. Reiner, who had overtaken everyone in progress, was the first to complete quenching. Right after, the other three finished quenching one after another. What kind of works will the four present? Let's wait and see. This is one of the hardest materials to forge on Forged in Fire, the coiled small spring. The forging process is not just difficult. Even a small mistake can easily cause deformation and cracking. It's the nightmare steel that contestants fear the most. As soon as this round began, the show's team launched a hellish challenge right away, dumping a whole pile of small springs. Contestants were required to use the small springs as raw material to make a unique short blade within 3 hours. The total length of the blade must not exceed 55 centimeters. The edge length should be between 25 and 30 centimeters, and the tang, blade root, must have a lacing heart design. When the host announced the start of the competition, everyone hurried to get to work. Alex, Mike, and Andrew, all three chose metal cans without hesitation. They planned to fill the cans with small springs and show off their Conforged Damascus skills. First, Alex took a clear lead in progress. After filling the metal can with small springs and steel powder, he started welding right away. Then he put the can into the fire to heat it. Once the heat treatment was done, he quickly used a press to forge the steel billet, but maybe he was in too much of a rush. The next moment, an accident happened soon after. The red-hot steel billet was pressed and cracked on the spot. Faced with this sudden problem, he didn't panic at all. He made a quick decision to reheat the billet and forge the steel billet again. Later, he also carefully cut off the cracked part. After getting the ideal steel billet, Alex officially moved to the next stage and started forging the blade shape. Andrew also chose a metal can, but his steps were much more careful. He first applied the release agent. While waiting for the release agent to dry completely, Andrew heated the small springs until they turned red and stretched them out. But right after filling the can, a key problem popped up. He didn't know how to use a welding torch. Staring at the can that wasn't welded and thus couldn't be heated, Andrew had to rethink his forging plan. On the other side, Mike used a blowtorch to stretch the small springs quickly. With a series of smooth moves, he finished filling the metal can in no time. Amid the flying sparks, the welding of the can was done right after. Then, he put the metal can into the fire officially to heat and forge it. Unlike the other three contestants, Bell abandoned the idea of Conforged Damascus. Instead, he decided to gather multiple spring wires together, add mild steel to them, and try a three-piece combined forging method. First, he put the small springs into the fire to heat them. Then he used tongs to stretch the spring wires. With a series of skillful moves, the wire, which was curled like instant noodles, stretched out quickly. The process went very smoothly, but right after that, things got out of control during the next step. After heat treatment, the spring wires actually clumped together into a ball. Bell was a bit frustrated about this, but considering the tight time, he had to bite the bullet and move on to the next step. He fixed the spring steel with tongs, then picked up a pair of hammers and forced the mild steel into shape by hammering. When it came to making mistakes, Andrew, after failing at welding, quickly switched his approach. After heating and straightening the small springs, he twisted multiple curved wires together. Then he used a hand hammer to forge the steel, planning to make a three-piece blade with mild steel. A few minutes later, Mike also ran into a problem. After removing the can, the steel billet didn't fuse perfectly. Looking at the bad failed piece in front of him, the unwilling Mike decided to try to fix it. Mike heated the steel again, then used the press for a second round of forging. The next moment, to everyone's surprise, the treated steel billet actually fused. This last-minute rescue left the judges greatly impressed. Just then, Andrew also forged a blade blank, since he had to modify the three-piece design with mild steel on the spot. The blade he made was a bit thin, but luckily, it was still a decent finished blank. Next, Andrew turned on the belt sander and started carefully grinding the blade blank, preparing for the quenching process later. With 45 minutes left in the competition, Alex was the first to finish quenching. Faced with the unexpected warping of the blade, he quickly turned on the angle grinder to adjust the details of the blade. After stretching the steel billet and hammering out the blade shape, Mike placed the blade blank under the press again. Before the official quenching, he planned to forge the tang blade root one more time. As the countdown was about to end, the 3 contestants finished quenching one after another. What kind of works will these 4 bring? Who will be the first to be eliminated? Let's wait and see.